Welcome to Sports Live Media on YouTube. It's your guy, Sports Live, broadcasting live today, January 11th, 2026. We have a special live stream that's called Name, Image, and Likeness 2.0 coming soon. Question mark. Yes, indeed. There's information that I have gathered regarding name, image, and likeness, and I know a lot of people have heard a lot of things about it. Name, image, and likeness is more or less just a concept that started way back in 2008 based off of college athletes and images of them reflecting on a video game. And through years of court cases and just dealing with things in court, the U.S. Supreme Court eventually ruled that college athletes can make money off of their said name, image, and likeness. Basically, anything that shows up as photos or anything that represents the university, the athletes themselves can now make money off of that. And everything has been going good with that. In a lot of cases, college athletes are being paid as a result of what they can get through private endorsements to play college sports and everything like that. But within those endorsements also comes responsibility, and everything seems to be going good for the most part on that. There were a couple of other lawsuits that occurred that basically makes it to where athletes can play and be paid at the respective universities and stuff. So for the ones that doesn't get the multi-million-dollar deals, they still get something for their participation in said sports. Well, I just found out a first draft of different things that was going on within name, image, and likeness. And when I saw it, I had to do a live stream about it. And it's literally going to be it's going to be name, image, and likeness 2.0, and this is a very detailed thing on that. Name, image, and likeness can help athletes be able to make money on it and whatnot. And in this live stream, maybe I'll answer some questions regarding that, but we'll just go over the document that I have. And again, this is first draft, so nothing is finalized. In sports, we all know that when the rumor mill happens, generally things happen. If a rumor comes out about certain things, it's already pretty much going to happen. It's just the finite details need to be worked out. They need to find the definitions, and then they need to tweak the terms and the wording of it and stuff, so things will happen. But with regard to that, I'm sorry, I had to introduce it the way that I did, but athletes.org has put together a document of what is coming, and I'm titling it Name, Image, and Likeness 2.0, but I'm going to show you what it said, what's coming. Collective Bargaining Agreement Framework. In other professional leagues, collective bargaining agreements are basically rules and guidelines in terms of playing conditions and other factors that are needed in order to effectively play the sport. This could be everything from financial packages to insurance to rules of the game in itself. So, because of that, we're going to go over this. This draft came out December 8th, 2025. And in the name, image, and likeness, we are seeing that they are working toward coming up with a framework for figuring out a collective bargaining agreement. Yes, you heard that right, a collective bargaining agreement. So, in this, I'm not going to read every part of the document, but basically, here we'll read some of it. And this is coming from athletes.org, so this is not my stuff, but this is why it needs to be talked about. College athletics stands at a crossroads. The current model is outdated, inequitable, fragmented, increasingly challenged by litigation. This continued threat only hinders the stability and growth of the entire industry. The revenue, profits, and donations received today are likely to be subject to future legal action. Because of that, they are looking at doing framework for a collective bargaining agreement. And according to athletes.org, here is why this is needed now. Inconsistent standards. The way one school operates often differs dramatically from another, leading athletes, administrators, and coaches vulnerable. A collective bargaining agreement establishes a national, clear, and enforceable baseline to provide stability across the system. It would also resolve the confusion caused by differing state laws by creating a uniform agreement between athletes and administrators, an approach successfully used in professional leagues to preempt inconsistent state regulations. Moreover, a collective bargaining agreement would produce a mutually agreed upon standard player contract modeled after those in pro sports, ensuring consistency and transparency across all participating institutions. The standardized baseline would replace the current patchwork of school-specific agreements that create unnecessary friction, inequity, and inefficiency throughout the college athletics system. Also, this is being put together as a form of lawsuits that came from House settlements. The recent House settlement provided a solution resolving 3 lawsuits, but was never designed to be a model on how college sports should work long term. So eventual congressional support, proactively negotiating a college bargaining agreement would give college athletics a clear structure and significantly improve the chances of earning bipartisan congressional support. One potential approach is a non-employee collective bargaining model that grants college athletes a special status, similar to how certain ones represents as members while still classifying them as independent contractors rather than employees. This model preserves athletes' rights while addressing a central concern of universities' employee designation. And again, this is coming from athletes.org. This is not me. So they put this together, and we're just looking at what this is entitling, because this is where NIL is going. Let's see. For the avoidance of doubt, athletes.org is a neutral information site, so they don't have any ties to any particular athletic association, but they're representing athletes and what they may need, as well as kind of being a mediator between them and the universities. So, basically, some of the considerations that they're looking at in the professional leagues, CBAs have delivered stability, created partnership between athletes and teams, protected athletes, and fueled billions revenue, money, opportunities. Yes, this is about money. Let's see, other considerations in the professional leagues, collective bargaining agreements have delivered stability, created partnerships between athletes and teams. It's protected athletes and fueled billions and more money, as I mentioned earlier. Without players' association representation, college athletes are unable to receive more lucrative group licensing deals. For example, the EA Sports College Football 25 deal paid out less than 1% of royalties to the NCAA's roughly 12,300 athletes or players, compared to the 10 to 15% negotiated by professional players associations. The game between the highest grossing video game of all time, generating over $1.1 billion in revenue. That is a difference of athletes earning the potential $110 million plus that could have been earned in royalties at a 10% royalty rate if negotiated by a players association within their interest in mind. Professional athletes in right-to-work states, example, with the example being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Miami Dolphins, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Carolina Panthers, they're represented collectively through their agreements to negotiate with the NFL and not their respective teams. The same can be applied to colleges. Hello there to everyone who's come in. Now, here are some things. The collective bargaining agreement that they're talking about putting in place, they say that it will benefit both the athletes and the universities. I'm not sure how much it's going to benefit both, but they say it's supposed to benefit the athletes. But let's go over this. According to athletes.org, The benefits for universities: greater legal protection than current or proposed alternatives, including the House settlement and continuation of the academic foundation model. Thank you for subscribing. I do greatly appreciate it very much. An opportunity to preserve the quote student athlete model while modernizing protections and compensation. It says consolidation of revenue sharing into structured athletic services contracts reflecting reality, reducing confusion and legal vulnerabilities tied to NIL while providing added accountability for stakeholders on all sides. An enforceable framework that allows schools to invest confidently in their athletic programs while managing a predictable, sustainable business model that takes all factors into consideration and helps to handle both profits and losses. Let's see. Now, this is, again, this is according to the athletes.org. This is what their thoughts are. Here is things that it says what it would do to benefit athletes. One, it would direct a voice in shaping their experience through structured, enforceable agreements rather than informal promises or shifting policies. Greater legal protection against the inconsistent standards, arbitrary restrictions, or future changes that could reduce opportunities or compensation. Fair and transparent revenue sharing through athletic services contracts, eliminating the confusion and unfair penalties tied to NIL deals for injuries or poor athletic performance. Collective licensing power that secures market rate for royalties in video games, apparel, and sponsorships. Closing the gap between what pros currently earn and what college athletes currently receive. Health and safety standards that set enforceable minimum standards for medical care, training, and player protection across all universities. Educational and personal stability by reducing litigation-driven disruption, ensuring athletes can focus on personal development, academics, and competition. Access to a structured system with financial, legal, educational, and medical resources to protect and maximize their college athletics experience. In doing this, they feel that eventually, if this goes through, they can get bipartisan support in Congress in order to make this a permanent thing. Again, this is the first draft of this said document. And I'm not reading everything word for word, but I'm just telling you what's being said and how everything's going. And I'm kind of just putting it together the best way that I can. There are other things that's going to go on with this, and I do want to get into that. So give me just a moment, and we'll move into that. Now, let's see. Again, coming from athletes.com, the long-term solution for college athletics. Administrators and athletes have expressed interest in establishing a long-term solution and structure that benefits the parties operating within its framework. For years, many administrators have consistently relied on a hope that Congress will develop a bipartisan solution and step in to create this framework, an unlikely outcome. As many have noted, the only way to do this is through coming up with a collective bargaining agreement. The NCAA, its member conferences, and institutions have consistently proposed rules for shaping the competitive landscape that ultimately limit a college athlete's earning potential by restricting their rights, which has raised antitrust concerns time and time again. In order for there to be a sustainable future for college athletics, the landscape must evolve to a true partnership where athletes are able to negotiate and agree to the terms of their participation through a collective bargaining process. Now, who would the athletes negotiate with? The same way the new enforcement entity, the College Sports Commission, was created to oversee compliance with the House settlement, including fair market value standards. That entity, an entirely new one, or a parallel entity would have to be formed to represent the institutions that agree to collective bargain with their athletes. Participating schools would become members of this entity, which would serve as their official representative body in the same way the NFL represents teams' interest in negotiating with the NFL Players Association or NFLPA or other associations like that within their respective sports. So the question then comes, what if they are working in a right-to-work state? The structure would allow schools in right-to-work states to participate similar to pro franchises in those said states. For example, although North Carolina and Florida are right-to-work states, players for the Carolina Panthers, Miami Dolphins, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Jacksonville Jaguars are still represented by the Players Association. They benefit from the protections and structures of a national multi-billion-dollar sports and entertainment industry, and they negotiate within their league, not the individual teams. In the college athletics context, this model functions similarly, ensuring that both schools and athletes participate in a regulated, sustainable system with minimal legal or political conflict. Hello, Taney. Hello, Leah. Thank you for joining me today. I do appreciate it. Again, we're going over this, and I'm learning this just as much as you are. So, now, let's see. Let me see if this is important. Okay. There are some context and key facts regarding how this may work. So I'm not necessarily going to go through all of these, but I will go through some of these. It says, fact, the way that you and your school operates is not how every school operates. A collective bargaining agreement exists to set a clear, consistent baseline, ensuring all schools meet minimum standards that create a safe, sustainable ecosystem for college athletics to thrive long term. Another fact, college athletics has never been more popular, but is also facing record levels of litigation. Without a collective bargaining agreement, legal challenges will only grow, with new parties, including schools and coaches, being named in lawsuits. Another fact, in professional sports, a collective bargaining agreement is viewed as a valuable asset for all parties involved: leagues, athletes, media networks, partners, sponsors, fans, etc. The same can be true in college athletics. One of the other facts, pro leagues negotiate with their players' associations, which they operate as they do, providing an effective structure as pro athletes are classified as employees. While college athletes are not currently employees, they can still be effectively served through a players' association today. Let's see. College athletes are not currently classified as employees. However, a collective bargaining agreement as proposed in this document could provide the framework for a non-employee model of collective bargaining. This would demonstrate to Congress that the NCAA and its members are responding to athlete concerns in a sustainable manner and no longer unilaterally suppressing their economic opportunities, strengthening the case for potential antitrust protections. Another fact, the House settlement aimed to shield the NCAA and its member schools from specific future legal claims related to athlete compensation for the next 10 years. However, it fails to address issues and claims that fall outside the narrow scope of the settlement, which Judge Wilkin noted. A collective bargaining agreement, by contrast, would create a more comprehensive, enforceable structure that proactively resolves disputes and defines athletes' rights across a broader set of scenarios. Let's see. Oh, here we go. When a player signs with an NFL team, they automatically become a member of the Players League Association, and the contracts contain recognition clauses that acknowledge the Players Association as the sole representatives of all athletes, preventing fragmentation through multiple competing associations. There are several other facts, like when they put it together, they'll collect membership dues and work to protect, consolidate, and maximize college athletes' group licensing rights, bringing greater value to both athletes and to the broader industry through its for-profit sister company. Anyway, basically, they would have an opportunity to join that association, and there would be membership fees for that. And it's not required that they would join that, but if they wanted better protections, then they would join. It's almost like a labor union, but for college sports, more or less is what it looks like. But this is where NIL is going. Another fact, player associations and pro leagues hold exclusive group licensing rights for their members' collective names, images, and likenesses. And this can be an agreement with like 3 or more players. These agreements ensure fair terms across the athletic marketplace and mitigate legal risk, often structured in coordination with the leagues itself. Another fact, let's see. College football is the second most popular sport in America based on ratings, but currently generates significantly less revenue than other major sports, 3 times less than Major League Baseball and 6 times less than the NBA. However, with proper structure and reduced legal exposure through collective bargaining, there is a massive upside for all stakeholders, a true partnership between athletes and the conferences and or the institutions can create a legally sustainable future for college athletics and unlock new financial potential for revenue generating sport athletes and the entire industry. Through enhanced organization stability and refinement, additional revenue can be generated to not only sustain non-revenue sports, but to invest deeper into them if the school chooses to do so. Again, per athletes.org, another fact, collective bargaining does not have to be a adversarial process. As the pro leagues and their players association have shown, alignment and partnership can create lasting, equitable success for all involved. At least that's what they're saying. So, more facts. Let me see if I got a couple others I can share. And again, this is just going over about where name, image, and likeness is going. Okay. So according to athletes.org, here's the benefits of participating in the collective bargaining process. According to them, greater protection against future litigation than any current or proposed methods or operation, including the House settlement terms. As Judge Wilkins stated in the settlement hearing on April 7th, 2025, the House settlement does not grant defendants protection under the non-statutory labor exemption because it was not collectively bargained, meaning universities are still subject to litigation across every meaningful category, including but not limited to any other notes. This could also include health and safety violations, third-party name, image, and likeness restrictions, institutional athlete compensation restrictions. A model that has historically gained antitrust exemption and would garner bipartisanship congressional support, empowering athletes to speak into the terms of their participation in the most equitable possible way through negotiation. While the word negotiation might suggest a major divide between athletes and universities, the reality is quite the opposite. Survey data and discussions with our members consistently show that most athletes want the very same things universities claim to value: stability, longer-term commitments for themselves and their teammates, a quality education, and a health-safe environment to play in. They want to preserve the unique nature of college athletics. Let's see, that's some of the benefits of this. This is the big part, defining the negotiable terms in college athletics. Basically, a professional collective bargaining agreement negotiation structure. There are several things that they do. Unilaterally determined by the league, which will be game rules, replay standards, officiating, playoff structure, seating, number of teams, international competition if that applies, broadcast media, streaming, digital rights, league level advertising and sponsorships, league trademarks and team intellectual property, physical infrastructure, team operations. That's basically something that is unilaterally determined by the league in question. The negotiated between a players' league and a players' association and the league, minimum salaries and salary cap, revenue split, rookie pay scale, benefits, training camp and practice limits, injury protections and grievance processes, post-career benefits and support, drug testing protocols and punishments, length of season, which will be the pre, the regular, the post, off-season program workouts, workload limits, group licensing rights, name, image, and likeness use, access to financial audits of league, travel conditions, free agency rules, draft and entry rules, what counts as revenue, and anti-cap circumvention. This is what the proposed college athletics collective bargaining agreement negotiation structure is wanting to look like. There are certain terms that they're looking for to be applicable to all athletes, which includes drug testing protocols, gambling policies, practice time, NIL use, group licensing rights, transfer portal rules and windows, academic resources, including actual time allocation, grievance processes, collegiate athletics eligibility, that could be like JUCO, NCAA, IA, or any other athletic association. Once determined, athletes cannot change. Community and charitable participation, like player appearances, agent representation requirements, data ownership, monetization, and privacy rights. Sport-specific would include travel conditions, sport-specific practice conditions, revenue sharing, salary cap, spending floors, bonus eligibility, like say for postseason, draft and entry rules, what counts as revenue, anti-cap circumvention. Stuff that would be controlled by the school or conference would be living conditions on or off campus, academic eligibility, graduation requirements, international eligibility, school-wide policies, which involve sexual harassment, domestic violence, etc., media rights, school and conference in-program stuff that they need to deal with on that. Now, we're going to get into the next section called called this right here. This is from athletes.org again, but the collective bargaining agreement terms. So what they're looking at doing is they're looking at figuring out different things. Basically, revenue sharing and payment schedule. They're looking to come up with something in that matter. I'm not going to go over the details on that. They're looking at setting the standard for compensation, in terms of how they are being paid and how they will be paid. In that, they're going to look at third-party NIL stuff, what the fair market value system is, boosters, postseason incentive play, player performance incentive pay pool, veterans performance incentive, veteran classification. What actually is the classification for that? They're looking at rules regarding the transfer portal and free agency. So the transfer portal window, which is college athletics version of free agency, and the penalties for tampering will be determined and agreed upon by both negotiating entity and the Players Association once that gets formed. They're looking at health, wellness, and safety standards that are uniform, and in that would include practice time versus game time. In college sports, right now, the current rules during the playing season, weekly maximum 20 hours of countable athletically related activities, daily maximum 4 hours of that. They have at least 1 day off per week from all athletic activities and required athletically related activities. They have to have 1 day off. Outside the playing season, they have a weekly maximum of 8 hours of athletic stuff, 2 days off per week during the off season. Vacation periods in between terms. They during vacation periods and between terms, up to 20 hours of maximum are allowed during that time. Days off, at least 1 day off per week during that time. Travel days to and from the competition site do not count as days off. That counts as actually time there. If an athlete reaches out with any health or safety concerns, then they can immediately have access to all areas necessary to school and accommodate athletes, its staff, or affiliates as needed. They're looking for what is considered injured reserve designation because the rules regarding that are not very clear, and they're looking for better clarity on that. In that, they're looking for continued access to medical coverage. They want long-term or lifelong medical injuries protection, and in that protection, how to deal with that. Compensation protection. So, say if you get injured, they're looking for how they'll still continue to be paid, even though they're injured, even though that might be at a reduced rate. They're looking at roster protection. Athletes placed on injured reserve may not have their scholarship revoked, academic resources reduced, or team access limited solely due to the injury. Their eligibility clock shall pause during any injured reserve designation that would exceed 30 days, subject to review. They want to be able to have the right to appeal basically any decision that comes on the injured reserve thing or the lack of designation. And in that process, they want a grievance thing that they can that once it's been communicated one way, that they have 5 days or 5 business days to respond. They want clarification on tampering and misclassification safeguards. They want a right to a free second medical opinion. So the school has their own medical personnel that makes determining factors regarding a player being injured. And right now, they're not currently allowed to have or to get a second opinion unless they pay for it out of their pocket. This collective bargaining agreement, as part of it, would basically allow for the team staff to do their medical analysis, and then if they wish to get a second opinion, they can do so, and it would be covered. Anything beyond the second opinion would have to still be paid for by the athlete, but it is always good to get a second opinion on that. Also, if there's a discrepancy between the two medical opinions, the athletes could retain the right to determine their course of treatment. So they have rules that state that after certain things that they have to go with whatever. Well, this agreement where basically if there's two disagreeing things, then the athlete can make a determining factor on what to do or not to do regarding their health. They're going to see about having a better understanding of concussion protocols when one gets a concussion. What that protocol actually is and how it's clearly defined, because there's a lot of vague language regarding concussion protocol. Some forms of injury, you may be out 2 or 3 weeks. Others, you might be out for a week, and it's very vague in terms of what concussion protocol is, so they're going to try to fix that. They want uniform travel standards that will be done by both the negotiating entity and the Players Association. So they want a standardization of what's expected for travel situations. Basically, they're looking for what's similar to most professional associations, at least 5 years of medical protection post-athletic career for any injuries that were sustained during their collegiate athletic career in its preparation for their participation in college athletics while officially enrolled as a student in good standing at the respective university. So if a player still has eligibility left and they get injured as a result of playing their said sport, they want fair medical treatment to give them the opportunity to recover from that said injury, come back to the sport they're playing, and still have eligibility left. The rules regarding how that works now is currently kind of vague, and they're trying to set the guidelines for that. They also want better mental health resources. Mental health seems to be a real issue, and it is a real issue. And the athletes are advocating for better resources for that. Since anxiety and depression and any other mental issues can strike at any age with any person, and it only takes a certain set of circumstances to cause it, these athletes do want better resources to help them be able to deal with and cope with their medical or mental issues, so that way they do not have to worry if they're going to have problems down the line because of lack of resources. In this, also, they want a grievance and arbitration process that's fair regarding how it's being treated, and they want clear guidelines regarding how that would work. Um, in the enforcement of stuff, um, there's no rule. There's nothing necessarily planned yet in terms of how they would enforce this, but that is to be determined and agreed upon by both the negotiating entity and the players association at the time when that happens. They also want additional considerations regarding certain things that is allowed or things that aren't allowed, but they want better clarity. That includes red shirt rules, drug testing protocols, gambling policies, eligibility, determining whether or not, what is considered eligibility, because there's been a gray line, and then there's been some lawsuits regarding athletes who were playing in the junior college athletics and then transferred to the other that, there's been questions regarding eligibility, regarding whether they're eligible or whether they're not. And they're going to try to see if they can set rules that are uniform all levels of college competition, whether that be JUCO, NAIA, NCAA, Division 1, 2, or 3, or any other athletic association. They want uniform guidelines for that. The standard, they're also wanting to have standard commitments that the athlete makes to the university, and they want those to be fair. Athletes are required in college to be available for the media, to talk to the media regarding different questions and things that they may have after a competition is over with. In most cases, when it comes to certain things like that, if a member of the media mentions to the coach that they'd like to talk to someone, they'll set that up. But the NCAA also has a rule called the cooling off period. So after a competition is over with at the NCAA, if you wish to interview the coach and or a player, there's a cooling off period, which is generally between 20 and 30 minutes, depending on the sport. And then after that, then you can interview the athlete. But in some cases, though, there's still not any clarity on that, and they want to be able to know what the rules are regarding that and make them fair both to the media entities, the university, and to the students. So they're going to try to come up with rules that would make that standard and easy to follow as part of their collective bargaining agreement. They want, in terms of data rights and privacy, the athletes want privacy as much as what is allowed by law, and they want to be able to help regulate what kind of data can go out to the public and what is not considered public information. The data rights would be basically, it wouldn't be like stats or anything, but there might be some other data points or things like that, and they want clear guidelines on that. It's not saying that they're going to restrict it. They're most likely not going to restrict it, but they want clear guidelines on what is considered data that can be used or cannot be used, and they want that. In regard to certain things, it says that they're wanting to deal with eligibility. So right now, a maximum of 5 years of eligibility from the date of first enrollment in a certified college or university. An age limit for participation in college athletics will also be determined and agreed upon by both the negotiating entity and the Players Association. There's been issues with some players because of red shirt rules and because of eligibility and stuff that ends up getting to play longer than other athletes. And then there's also an issue of eligibility based upon age. Certain athletics have certain players that are much older than, say, the rest of the team, and they want uniform guidelines regarding age limits and or eligibility and what determines that and the clear rules on that. It's not saying that they may discredit an older player that's trying to play college sports, but they want to have set guidelines to where, if you meet these guidelines, you can do so, but there are exceptions, but they want to know what those exceptions are and have a clear guideline on that. Let's see. Athlete representation and representatives as agents. Standard athlete representation agreement to be determined and agreed upon by both the negotiating entity and the Players Association. So they're wanting to be able to have agents, and if these athletes want to use agent services, they can. But right now, the laws and the rules are very sketchy at best regarding that, including with how things are in the name, image, and likeness. So they're wanting to use that as a means to come up with exact rules on when agents are used, how they're able to be used, where they can be used, and just have general guidelines on that so players can follow that. In disclosing and reporting things, they want transparent and comprehensive athletics revenue reporting. Basically, they want to know where the money's coming from. They want to be, they want to determine, basically, in terms of what revenue sharing there is, they want to know where the money's coming from, where it's being spent, and how it's being distributed, regardless of where it comes from. So some revenue could come from concession stand sales, some could come from ticket sales or other means, like through licensing and merchandising, but they want a clear-cut thing on what is actually considered that, and they want to be able to have fair representation on what kind of information gets out on a personal level, although there are bits of information that isn't personal and that people can get to just by looking up public record, but they want to have clear definitions of that. They also want a better guideline for health, safety, and wellness incident reporting. They want a clear process on how to report it and how it's being dealt with and what will come from it. They're looking, player transition services. Player transitions, development and success services will not be removed. The negotiating entity and players association will set the required minimum level of programming and support that school and will be responsible for providing those services. But those services that they're looking at include but are not limited to freshman orientation, continuing education, professional development, financial education, personal development. They're wanting to find a clear-cut way on how that will work and provide those services to the students. There may be other services that they're looking to provide, but those have not been mentioned at this time. But it said included but not limited to, meaning that they want this and there could be more, but that hasn't been finalized yet. Player discipline and fine schedule. They want a clear-cut way of knowing, like, if you do certain things that you're going to get fined and this is how you're going to be disciplined and stuff. And professional association and stuff, that information generally is not available to the public, but each of these athletes gets a clear-cut guideline on, okay, if you do this is how much you're going to be fined. This is the minimum that it could be, and this is the maximum that it could be. And they want to know clearly how much those fines are going to be and what they'll be fined for, because in college and stuff, things happen and the fines are not really clearly labeled and stuff. The fines that you hear about is when an athletic conference fines a team for storming the field. Well, they have clear-cut guidelines on that, but the players want to know what their fines are up ahead of time for any disruptive behavior that might occur. In the heat of the moment of the game. I'm not condoning that things don't happen or do happen, but sometimes things do happen that is contrary or detrimental. They want to know what it may cost them if this stuff happens, which sometimes does happen in the heat of the moment. And in that schedule, what they want to do is they want to know, like, if it's a first offense, how much it is for repeat. And also, if they do get fined, they want a designated way of knowing how quickly it has to be taken care of. And they want an appeals process if they feel that it's too much or, not fair in the way of treatment. They want better guidelines for academic eligibility and requirements. Eligibility requirements will remain in the hands of the schools. However, these requirements will not be utilized for roster manipulation. If athlete manipulation can be proven, they want ways that it can be dealt with. Reduction of constraints that prohibit athletes from pursuing a degree of their choice. Athletes generally are playing sports, but they're given a list of things that they can supposedly major in and it not interfere with their playing time. Athletes want to be able to choose what they want to major in and let them be the one to make the choice if they can do it within their schedules. There are some majors that requires a lot of time in the classroom and out of the classroom, and so these athletes want a choice at what majors they want to pursue because they may or may not want to pursue with what's in the approved curriculum to make sure that it doesn't disrupt the football or the basketball or the other sports. So this would provide clear guidelines on how they would have that same list that they had earlier, but they would have other rules that might apply to certain other majors depending on things, but that would be agreed upon by the athletes, the programs, and the university and or the other entities. They want more resources available for academics and availability minimums. So basically, tutors and career development resources to be agreed upon by both the negotiating entity and the players association. They do offer a lot of, they do offer services to help struggling, students that are athletes in doing their classes, but they feel that the resources are limited and they want more resources and availability for that. Also, in that, the availability minimums would have to do with the minimums that are required for each athlete regarding media and or other appearances on campus or just in general. They also, as part of a health situation to make sure that they're physically able to play, they want better. They want the agents representing college athletes that will require the athletes to take an examination, complete a background check, process and become certified. Parents and legal guardians will have the right to represent their athlete without completing the certification process. So basically, when it comes to matters of legal or legalese, it provides more resources for athletes and or agents to be able to have better representation. They want the ones to be certified to do their job. And when it comes to the overall physical health, they want all the players to have a physical to determine their condition on whether or not they should be able to participate in the said sport. And the players support that because there are some players that are playing the sport that may have been injured previously that really should not be out on the playing field, but they take that risk and they'll have certain guidelines regarding that. Now, let's see. All right. Basically, this is just a first draft on different things. This is not something that's been finalized, but this is where NIL is going. So this will be NIL 2.0. This is going to come out, and most of this information from athletes.org, most do not know about it and stuff. And you can go there for more information or resources regarding that. But I wanted to go over this regarding the collective bargaining agreement because the way that goes within those restrictions and rules, which will be coming out in the coming months, is going to redefine college sports. And it's going to make it to where not only do you get the name, image, and likeness for being an athlete and representing the school, but in some cases you may be considered a contractual, not really like a W-2 worker, but basically one that is self-employed, but they get paid for their services for the school. And they're going to have ways of getting paid in multiple ways. They're going to get paid through, NIL deals that they may get. They'll have certain the universities and colleges will have certain other money that athletes can be paid just for playing the sport. This basically will set up all of the guidelines to make it all uniform, and they will do it in such a way to where the state governments cannot interfere and make the rules more difficult or less difficult. It would be just a way that it's ran, and that's how it will be done. As a result of some of this, some of the associations that are athletically based might change the rules regarding, seasons and stuff, because a lot of times they'll make these decisions in offices, but they don't really take any input from the players. It's not going to minimize anything, but, in some cases, seasons might end up lasting longer because of this said collective bargaining agreement. The issue comes, though, that if something like this happens, one day we wake up and they're not able to come up with an agreement to renew, and then they go on strike, just like they do in the pro sports, and that's where we're headed. Um, my thoughts on this is, I think it's a positive step regarding um, coming up with uniform guidelines. I'm not really going to go into detail on the personal level on my thoughts as a whole, but I do think that in most cases it's good to have uniform rules. Depending on what state you are, and even in what city you're in, the rules regarding all of the stuff that I discussed is different. It can be, it'll say one thing in, say, Alabama, and then you go to Arkansas or Kentucky or Wyoming, and each state has their own different set of rules. So part of this will be basically coming up with a national guideline that all universities that participate have to take part in. I do not know if all of the schools are going to agree to this, but it seems from just reading the information and looking at polls that a majority of the universities are in favor of this in some form or degree, and they're just waiting for everything to be finalized, because once you finalize the process that's going to come now, this was just the first draft, and I just kind of summarized what was going on with that. But once they've established these guidelines for the rule and what's going to apply, then in terms of the financial part of that, it's going to be the part that's going to be the real problem, and that's the part that they're going to have to spend time negotiating. So even though this is the first draft, it might be several months before we get a final version of this draft, just in terms of what the rules are. And then it may take even more time to actually set up how it's going to work financially for everything. And they're going to have to determine pre-market, fair market value, and that could change from year to year. So they're going to have to find a way to make a uniform thing to where they only have to make minor tweaks. So again, the main part of this is a first draft, so this is just the idea that is there on the table. So my thoughts on it are, it is going to happen. It's just a matter, it's not really if, but when, but it's going to take some time, because they still have to make some minor tweaks to the rules and the established guidelines on this, and they're going to have an organizational structural thing in terms of how this is going to work. Once they get that into place, then they're going to have more time to discussing the financial side of things. So it could be a while before this gets into play. But I wanted to talk about it today because this is coming, and it will be coming sooner than we think. And these meetings that I'm talking about regarding this are ongoing. I expect the final draft, probably if I were to put an estimate, I would say the final draft of this is within 18 months out, and then after the final draft comes out, then the financial aspect of that's going to be more discussion. Now, they can get this done quickly, but I don't see it happening necessarily next year, but after next year, that could be when this stuff gets actually put into place. However, it could be put in sooner, so I honestly do not know. Anyway, thank you for taking the time to come in on this broadcast today for this special live stream regarding Name, Image, and Likeness 2.0. Let's see. Hang on just a second. All right. Well, I got a little bit more information. I thought I was done, but I'm not. All right. So, excuse me. Let's look at the comparison for the revenue sharing that other players associations have. And then, of course, the college realm of things will be different. But the NFL Players Association, players receive 48% of league revenue started in 2021, potentially rising to 48.5%, depending on media revenues. In the NBA, players receive approximately 49 to 51% of basketball-related income, or BRI. Major League Baseball players receive 48 to 52% of total league revenue, depending on various factors like revenue sharing and competitive balance tax. Excuse me. The National Hockey League players receive exactly 50% of hockey-related revenue adjusted through escrow. Major League Soccer has no fixed revenue share percentage comparison tied to league-defined salary budgets. Right now, the WNBA utilizes an incremental revenue sharing model. So other leagues have it in the pros, and in this collective bargaining agreement that the college will have, it does not mean that college athletes are going to make that much revenue. And when I say make that much revenue, that percentage is spread out evenly among all of the teams within that said association. So, they may not get the numbers in terms of what they're wanting to get are probably not going to be that high. I mean, it could be if that's what they come up with, but it looks like that's just kind of a guideline on that. Basically, they're looking at minimum compensation. So no, but that was the player comparison. So let's look at different things regarding minimum salaries and stuff. I thought I was nearly done, and I'm sorry I wasn't. In the NFL, minimum salary for a rookie is $610,000 to $1,050,000. 7+ seasons in 2020, and it increases annually. The NBA, the minimum annual salary for a player with 0 years of service for the 2023-2024 season is $1,119,563. For the 2024 season, the minimum major league salary is $740,000 for rookies. In the NHL, for the 2024 league year, the minimum salary was $775,000. Major League Soccer, the minimum salary was $67,360, and the max senior minimum salary was $89,716. Sorry. The minimum salary for a first-round draft pick in the WNBA is $76,535. Some associations also have salary caps, and they'll discuss those, where basically a salary cap is the maximum amount of money that a team could spend on paying their players. And some associations some athletic associations are very strict on that. Others have leeway, but most do not have leeway on those caps. Those caps do get adjusted every so often, and they renegotiate that. Let's see. In terms of guaranteed contracts, in the NFL, guaranteed contracts are not mandated or negotiated individually for signing bonuses, roster bonuses, salary guarantees for injury, skill, or salary cap termination. In the NBA, contracts are generally full guarantee with some exceptions for specific injuries, skill conditions, or other individually negotiated terms. In Major League Baseball, contracts are generally fully guaranteed, especially for veteran players. Exceptions may occur, but typically only occur under individually negotiated circumstances. NHL I do apologize for getting cut off on that stream. I thought I had enough stuff that was going on, but basically the thing that's going to be remembered is they're going to use this as a means to get. I don't know if it's going to cause restrictions or if it's going to cause more freedom, because in some cases, it looks like it's going to create friction regarding restrictions and stuff. Players should be able to make whatever they feel they can make in fair market value, or what they can get on their own personal NIL stuff. That part, I don't know if it will be fair or not. What I see as fair is the fact that they're trying to give all athletes a reasonable shot at being able to make money somehow through name, image, and likeness. So, hello to Leopold, and Tinley, and anyone else that joined in that I did not see. I apologize for the stream getting cut as it did. Having some technical issues there, but I got it back up and running. Anyway, so the name, image, and likeness 2.0 is coming. It's coming soon, and it's going to be in the form of a collective bargaining agreement. And just to summarize what I've talked about, basically they're looking at, the main thing is they're wanting to set up established rules for how things are going to work. That includes everything from revenue sharing to other money-making stuff that they can do to, everything that a player's bargaining agreement has, length of season, how many contests they're going to have, how they're going to practice, how are they going to get help if they get injured, and they're going to, basically right now with NIL, the rules are not, the rules are generally vague and there's not really any clear-cut things. So this collective bargaining agreement is going to be a means for them to have uniform standards regarding rules and regulations on that. When it comes to sports and stuff, more rules, more regulation. I'm not really a big fan of rules and regulation regarding certain things. However, in this case, I think if you're going to have guidelines, they need to be clear. There needs to be no question on how things are with it. They need to have established rules for how they conduct themselves and how it's going to work. And I think also, if you have these clear-cut rules, it'll also help set guidelines for accountability, since right now there isn't much of that. But again, this information that I had was from athletes.org, and more information will come out as it is. I'm not going to, I'm hoping to see what the final draft is going to look like, because once they get the rules actually in place in terms of what they're actually wanting to do within those rules, I'll see if I can find those, and then we'll do another live stream at that time regarding that. This is just a proposal. They're wanting to put this together. They still have to find out what they're looking for within those said guidelines. And then once they establish that, then they have to actually put the actual guidelines together. And then once they put the guidelines together, then they have to find the financials to go along with that, and or other services they will provide. So anyway, I do thank you for joining me for this special broadcast today regarding Name, Image, and Likeness 2.0. I do greatly appreciate it very much. Any questions, comments regarding what I was just talking about? Again, I'm sorry about the stream getting cut, but it is what it is. Anyway, if there's no questions, comments, if you will, please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the notification bell so you can be made aware of when I'm doing these special live streams, when I have sports action videos, when I have sports education videos, when I broadcast live, or when I have breaking news in the sports world. If you wish to subscribe to the channel, it is greatly appreciated, and some of you already have done so, and I do appreciate it. But you can do so two ways. One, you can go to www.youtube.com, the slash symbol, the at symbol, SPORTSLOV, or you can go on the YouTube search tab and type in Sports Live Media as two words, SPORTSLOV as your first word, media, MEDIA, as a second word. You'll know it's me because I have Sports Live Media burned into a basketball as my avatar. I'm also on Twitter X, and my handle there is at BobAmin16. That is the at symbol, BOBAMIN16. Just a quick note, I will be doing an NFL themed live stream on Tuesday, the 13th of January. I'm not sure of the time yet, but I will let you know as soon as I am able on that. We are also going to continue the Wednesday live stream that we do, which is Hoops and Pucks and Wednesdays, oh my, where we will talk men and women's college basketball, NBA G League, NBA regular basketball, the National Hockey League, and a few other hockey league stuff. We will be starting a new live stream probably on Friday. So that information will be coming out soon. But there will be another live stream that we'll do on Fridays starting in a week or so. But I will let you know when that comes out. We're also going to continue doing sports action videos. And I'll continue broadcasting live where I can. I'll continue providing breaking news where it's appropriate, and we'll do anything we can with that. I'll try to let you know the best way I can when it comes to that. Also, coming up there will be a lot of sports action videos coming up, especially later in the month. And also again in February. So we've got a lot planned for this channel. So college football has pretty much wrapped up. So in terms of live streams regarding college football, there will not be any additional live streams regarding college football this year. However, on the day of the national championship, sometime after the game is over with, I will do a video that summarizes how the national championship went, because we've already done a summary we did a live stream the other day called The Road to the National Championship. And in that, we broke down how the teams got there and just some general information regarding that. We will do the NFL-based stream again on Tuesday of this week. Not sure of the time yet. And regarding the NFL, we'll also have a special live stream regarding NFL football for the Super Bowl. If everything goes according to plan, later in the month and also through the spring, I will have live coverage as live streams of live sporting events. I don't know which ones those will be just yet, but I will let you know as soon as I know. I guess that's all the housekeeping things that we need to do. So, again, thanks to each and every one of you for joining me today. I do greatly appreciate it. I'm sorry again about the technical issues I had, but hopefully I'll have that fixed for next time. So, in the meantime, thank you for joining me today.